Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Susanne Goldstein. We are going to talk about consciousness in business, and we discussed putting out a little disclaimer. There may be some not so age sensitive language in this episode. So if you are sensitive to language, consider this your polite disclaimer. Welcome to the show, Susanne.
I was so happy to be here, and I'm cracking up about our disclaimer, but I'm glad we did it.
All right, let's start with the basics. Let's talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, what your business is. So our audience has a frame of reference for who is this incredible woman that we're going to be listening to for the next 25 to 35 minutes.
So I call myself the OG conscious business mentor. I have been in the coaching, mentorship, and consulting world for more than 33 years. I think it's almost 35. And this is my forehand, my backhand, and my serve. I was put on this planet to help humanity evolve, to help people become more conscious, and to help them have the kinds of lives and work and dreams that they want to have. But I want to show them how to do it with an eye towards how it affects people, how it affects the planet, and ultimately how they're able to make profits. For me, these things are completely melded together. It's not you do one and then the other. They're all at the same time.
We were talking a little bit before we hit the record button on this episode about where people need to be within themselves to really step into this role of being a conscious business owner, being a conscious entrepreneur, because there are a lot of people that are still operating at a level, and this is not to shame anyone by any stretch of the imagination. We've all been there, right? Where you're still sort of in survival mode. And so what you're looking for is the consultant who can help you increase your sales, the consultant that can help you with your social media campaign, the consultant that can help you with whatever XYZ result is. And this talk about being more conscious is really off-putting, almost uncomfortable to someone who is coming from that perspective. It's like, I just need money in the bank. I don't want to talk about being a more empowered version of myself. That would be great when I feel financially secure or I have this certain result. So let's talk to that a little bit, because there are people who are listening who feel that inner call. Now, I am a firm believer that there are no accidents. Someone who is aligned with listening to this, not only this episode, but this podcast, they're not operating on that superficial level. They are feeling their inner calling. They are stepping into more meaning and more purpose in their life and in their business. So I want you to just sort of share with us, what, from your perspective, what's going on within that individual who is saying yes to evolving at this more spiritual, conscious level, personally and professionally?
This is such a beautiful question, and it's very, very deep. So I'm going to give a deep answer. And again, I want to use the word that you said. This is not about shaming anybody. This is about a level of awareness. And it's also about a level of stepping out of the matrix that we live in. So we in society today live in, I'm here in Boston. I live in the United States. This is a country that has been founded on a certain set of rules. And the rules say women are less than men, that people who have skin that is not white are less than people who have skin that is white. And no one is saying this out loud. This is cultural, baked into our society. One of the other pieces that's baked into the American culture is that entrepreneurship is the thing. Like, anyone can reach the American dream. anyone can get ahead. And part of that messaging is that you do that. You work very, very, very hard. You get your kids to go to good schools. And then once you've done all that, you retire and you start giving back to society. That is a cultural norm. And I'm just going to say that's very 20th century. In the 21st century, what we talk about more is that it is not a duality where you have to think about, okay, I'm going to make the money and then take care of my family and my personal legacy first. But instead, I'm going to, at the same time, counter that with creating legacy making in a bigger sense. Even if it's as simple as recycling, knowing that the planet that we're living on is not going to last forever the way that we're using it right now. It's about bringing consciousness to the everyday. So one piece of this is understanding the matrix that we live in. I am a big fan of the Matrix movies. I teach a class on the Matrix movies because I think they're so potent in terms of explaining consciousness. So this consciousness is not just a spiritual consciousness. I'm not talking about spiritual elevation, because I know a lot of people who are ascended masters and their level of vibrational energy in consciousness is so high. And it's very funny because they all come to me and they're like tethered balloons. And they have a string and they hand me their string and they're like, you're the most grounded person I know. Can you please pull me back down so I can use some of my energy and potency to help elevate humanity and the earth, not just my personal self. So I think this is part of new business, new earth, to be able to hold the duality and know that there's actually just one answer. And we can undo our prior coding, our prior thinking, our prior wounding about the separateness of business from life.
Yes. I have been saying for a long time as well that there really is no separation between business and life. And that old way of thinking really creates a lot of internal and external issues for people. We're creating everything in our life, from the types of employees we attract, the types of clients and customers we attract, the amount of money that we earn, the quality of our relationships with our significant other, our children, other family members. Our business is an extension of us. And when we are fragmenting ourselves, we are not only doing a disservice to everyone who is affected by our business, but we're also doing a disservice not to ourselves and to our family. Now, you have I don't know if we'd call it a formula, but I loved when you shared with me what your methodology is, how you take your clients through this process with you. So I'd love for you to share this because I think there's a tremendous amount of wisdom in that.
So thank you. I have a methodology we call the Dare Human Diamond. So Dare Human is the name of my company. The movement that we're creating is about heart-centered leaders who go about building businesses from a conscious point of view in their life and in their work. And in this methodology, if you imagine holding your fingertips together and your thumbs together, it makes a diamond, that each of those points of the diamond are pieces of this framework. And the bottom of the diamond we call the alchemist. So it's 4 archetypes: the alchemist, the artist, the accelerator, and the advocate. And the whole methodology is, how do you change your life? How do you change the world? And at every level of business ascension, and I take people through this whole model of business ascension, at every step, you apply these 4 things. So the first is the alchemist, know yourself. The next is the artist, live on purpose. The one after that is called the accelerator, get shit done and make money. And then the top of the diamond is called the advocate. And this is the one who is the change that she or he wants to see in the world. This is the one who shows up in alignment with their values and who they desire to be, and is conscious of their impact and their influence and chooses to use it for good at every level. So if you're new in business and you're thinking about this, in order to launch a business on your own, particularly for entrepreneurs, you gotta work on your emotional intelligence, right? If you don't, you're gonna be scared to do the things that you need to do. You're gonna have difficulty having challenging conversations with people that you're trying to work with. Like, there's so much base work that needs to be done. And then as you go up the different pieces of the artist, the one who uses their paintbrush to imagine beautiful, new, innovative solutions to big problems or small problems, you can see how, as someone's business ascends, the problems that they're addressing, the challenges that they're taking on, and their true north becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. Then they start attracting people who are going in the direction of that true north. And then, as you can imagine, as your business gets higher in its ascension, the challenges that you have in terms of making money and getting shit done become more complex. If you actually want to scale a business, you got to learn to put the systems in place while you're doing the doing. I call it building the airplane at the same time that you're flying it. And then the last piece is this advocacy piece. And whether the advocacy is you learning to market yourself at the beginning, and then market yourself with this piece of consciousness of what's happening in the world, the lack of separation, the unity thinking, we can see how we can start to change people's minds and hearts and lead as heart-centered leaders who are creating these businesses, using business and the tools of business to make society and our world better. And to me, like, that is the icing on the cake.
I just have to say, I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
If each and every one of us, we're doing our inner work, we are becoming that better version of ourselves. And we are helping others to have a better quality of life, whether that is through your leadership or by being a good parent, creating products and services that have a positive transformational effect on other people on the planet. We don't have to do things the way that they've been done in the past. And so many people are feeling that call. And there are so many incredible people. You could call them light workers. You can call them whatever nice cutesy label you want to slap on it. But the fact is that there are a lot of people, good people, who have this desire to get their work out into the world, to make their little bit of positive difference. And they are getting in their own way because they don't have the skills, they don't have the mindset, they don't have the support to get from where they are to where they really truly want to be. Mm-hmm. And it frustrates me, and that is a big piece of why I do what I do as well, because this isn't about competition. This is about each of us stepping up and doing our piece, our part. And just like a puzzle, no one
exactly
piece.
How I describe it.
There you go. Great minds, right?
Yes.
Every piece is important. There is no one piece that is better than another. And we need all of those pieces to make this beautiful puzzle. And that is this new world that we all want to be experiencing, with less of the negativity and less of the fear and less of the struggle and pain and violence and all of these crappy things that so many people are struggling with every single day. And for those of us that are inspired with solutions that can help people and are not stepping out of that fear, not stepping out of those old limiting beliefs, not stepping into saying yes to doing what we need to do to get up that ascension ladder and do our work in this more meaningful way, it's a disservice to everyone.
I Could not agree more. To me, I was put on this planet to help people become conscious as fuck and consciously rich. And that's different than being sexy as fuck or something else. It's about being that open mind and that open heart and that open channel that is available to see the world differently, to literally carve away all of the previous coding that has been laid upon us so that we can see what is possible. And I truly believe that the world is meant to be collaborative, not competitive. And so something came through as you were talking about the puzzle, because I talk about the puzzle piece all the time, but as you were speaking, this image came in for me, which was that there are pieces of the puzzle that anchor us, right? Those corners, when you find the corner piece, it really anchors you. And when you find the edge pieces, they really anchor you. And then there's lots of different pieces of the puzzle that are filled in. Not every single person needs to hold the standard bearer for being out front, leading the movement, being the activist. The reason I call it advocacy, it's about using your voice. It doesn't mean you have to be out there with a picket sign. So everybody gets to play a part. And we also get to ask ourselves in the playing of the part, do I want to be one of the anchor points? Do I want to be one of the leaders of the movement? Do I want to be someone who's part of the crowd? Because I love to be part of the crowd, but I don't want to be leading. And it's all good. We need grass middles, we need grassroots, and we need grass tops. Those are how we make change in the world.
That's so good. So good. And right there, it's so obvious. And yet it is not. I know how the mind works. People hear this and immediately the association is, oh, I have to go out and I have to become an influencer. I have to go out. I have to become a public speaker. I have to have some product or service that changes the world. And that's just simply not true. You can make such a profound difference by even working with one person at a time. If you change one person's life, that person becomes a better version of themselves. And that has a positive influence on their children and, other people in their lives. And so I love that you said that, because we feel what is sort of our right next step, right? We kind of feel it. Some people are like, I know that I want my voice heard. I know I want to get out there in a big way. I want to be in front of the crowd. And other people say, no, I'd rather take a supportive role. Still a critical role that makes such a huge difference when you're operating in alignment and in congruency with yourself. And it's so important for people to stop this silliness. I've heard it for so many years from clients, like, it doesn't matter if you're a mechanic or if you are the next Tony Robbins. What matters is that you're in your alignment. You're doing what you love. You're the best version of you, and you're doing it in a way that lights you up, that that consciousness that we're talking about. Because I know I could take my car to a mechanic who hates his job and does a half-assed job because he's only doing it for a paycheck, and he's doing it begrudgingly, and he's not in his alignment. He's not operating from that consciousness. Or I could take my vehicle to a mechanic who is so full of passion and purpose and absolutely loves it. He gets it done in a fraction of the time, and he does an incredible job. And what is going to have a better impact on me and my life? The person operating with that level of consciousness.
You're reminding me of the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which I have not read for probably 35, 40 years, but it is, I'm aging myself, but it is such an incredible book that if your readers don't know about Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, it is that feeling. And I want to add something that you started to mention earlier, is that I talk a lot about a gentleman named Ralph Abernathy. Now, I don't know if you've heard of him. I don't know if your listeners have heard of him. If you haven't, there's nothing wrong with you. Ralph Abernathy was the man who stood just behind and to the right of Martin Luther King Jr. And as Dr. King was leading a movement, there was a man named Ralph Abernathy next to him who did all the work. There are people needed at every role in every movement. And so if the movement, the role that you're playing is to make sure that your kids are brought up with emotional intelligence so that they understand that other kids aren't, and some become bullies because of how they're raised, you're having a ripple effect in your children. And that changes the genetic memory that is passed down in your family. You're breaking cycles. You're changing the way that things can end up. So I believe that each of us can be a force for good in our own lives. And when we have our lives settled, or we have our lives to a certain place, we can then elevate the people around us because they are inspired to become more like us. And as they are more inspired to be more like us, we up level, because it is in showing people the way that we grow. So as a mentor and as a coach who's been at this for a very, very long time, every time I coach someone, every time I mentor someone, I up level, because it's in their rising that I learn more about me. And in me learning more about me, I can help them rise again. And it's this beautiful cycle. So there's no role that anyone has to play. We can all play lots of different roles.
So good. This is the perfect time for me to ask you, as the business owner, one mindset obstacle that you've overcome to get to where you are today.
You prepped me with this question and I still say it, like, which of 10,000 stories? So I'm going to tell one that was a very deep personal wound that I had to heal for me to come into my fullest version of myself. And that is that I had a pretty rough childhood. There was a lot of stuff that happened that I don't need to go into here, that suffice it to say, I ended up with chronic PTSD. I ended up trying to take my life once, and I was very suicidal at a different time, and really promised myself at that time I wasn't going to go down that path, and got the support I needed. The lingering effect of that for many years was a victim mentality, a way of seeing the world that everything was against me, as opposed to understanding that people didn't necessarily have me in their sights. It might have been that they just didn't think of me, and their not thinking of me wounded me more because I only saw and heard it from the victim mentality mindset. Now, it made sense that I had a victim mentality. I was victimized a lot. And so it takes an enormous amount of belief in self to switch that orientation. And I will never forget the day it made the most sense to me. This was years and years ago. I was working with a brilliant cognitive behavioral therapist, and I was telling him a story, and it was a version of the same story I probably told him 200 times. And he said to me, Susanne, the only thing that surprises me is that it still surprises you. And at that moment, my whole head exploded. It was like, suddenly I could see what I couldn't see before, which is that my inability to extract myself from the story was not only creating the stories repeating over and over and over again. I didn't know how to break the cycle because I couldn't see that I still was hopeful about that victimization cycle changing. And until I realized it was not going to change, I needed to change, then my entire life changed. I would say that that is probably one of the biggest moments of mindset shifting and work that I have done that changed the game for me.
So often it is one of those core wounds that is so obvious if you look at the evidence of your life objectively, but when you are in it, you're not seeing it objectively. You're seeing it through the lens of your current conditioning, and it's keeping you trapped. And when you break free from that, the floodgates open.
Yeah. It was shocking to me, like such a simple phrase. And I know the truth is that had he said it to me a couple of years prior, I wouldn't have heard it. In fact, he might have said it to me a couple years prior, but I don't remember it.
Mhm.
And so I think part of this work is loving yourself. It's seeing yourself. It's allowing yourself to be provoked by looking at your own life, and then finding those moments or those mentors or those coaches or those friends or those family members who will help you unleash yourself. And then you can start to live awake. Otherwise, we're just in the matrix, doing our job, wait, TGIF, hoping it's Friday so we can meet up with the friends at the bar and, oh my God, complain about our work. Like, no, let's not live in that world anymore. Let's create a new one that we love to be in, that we get to live lives of our dreams, that we realize that money is an instrument. If you live completely in a life of service, the money will follow. It is a universal law. And yet we think we got to make the money before we can be of service. So I want to turn that whole model upside down.
Beautiful. Now, Susanne, how can our listeners connect with you?
So the best way to connect with me is probably on Instagram at follow Susanne. So it's the word follow, FOLLOW. And then Susanne is spelled with an S in the middle. So it's SUSANNE. And from there on Instagram, you can follow me, my stories, my posts, but also I have a link tree that's connected to that account, and it will take you everywhere. So it'll take you to my Launchpad, which has all of my recorded programs that you can buy at self-paced and go through them and learn how to be a conscious leader and a conscious business owner. It will take you to my website where you can see what I do. It will take you to my Facebook page so you can join my Dear Human community. It will take you everywhere you need to go. So I would say that's the hub to go there.
Perfect. Okay. Any final parting thoughts that you'd like to leave us with?
I think that it's funny I started this sentence with I think. I feel that if people stopped thinking so much and started feeling more, stopped looking away, hoping that the bad things that are happening in the world, the terrible things that are happening in society, the terrible things that are happening around the globe, if we stop looking away because it's too hard to look, work on your emotional intelligence. Because if you want to be part of a world that you want to live in, you got to look. You've got to be willing to engage. When you don't, other people who are willing to engage and reinvent the world in the way that they desire it to be, they're going to actively reinvent the world. And you're going to be looking over here going, hey, what happened? How did the world end up this way? How did the United States end up so divided? It's because there was a group of people who were actively working to create division, and a group of people who were looking away going, can't we all just get along? Kumbaya. So I really encourage anyone who has not done the deep work to become what I call psychologically mature. That someone saying something doesn't throw you off kilter, that you know how to get back to center quickly, that you understand that you have tools, that your emotions are not you, you are different from them, and you have the ability to change them and control them and up-level them anytime you want. This is how we good, kind people start making a difference in the world, is by getting in our hearts, having emotional intelligence, and walking from there.
That is a beautiful way to end this episode. Thank you so much, Susanne, for being with us.
It is my pleasure. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for leading it.
Well, it is my pleasure. And thank you to all of our listeners. We are doing this for you. If you have not already subscribed, please make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.